Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
Good evening and welcome to Spring Global on Western Spring Television. Now the headlines. Mali's military leader pardons 49 Ivory Coast soldiers accused of being mercenaries. Iran hangs 2 persons for allegedly killing a security official during nationwide protests. Decade-old NASA satellite set to fall to Earth tomorrow. My name is Damilola Raphael. Mali's military leader has pardoned 49 soldiers from neighboring Ivory Coast who were arrested in July 2022 and accused of being mercenaries. The 49 soldiers were detained after arriving at Mali's Bamako airport. Ivory Coast said the soldiers were part of a United Nations peacekeeping mission in Mali and were contracted to work for a private company contracted by the UN. The soldiers' arrests and charges against them sparked a diplomatic dispute between Mali and Ivory Coast. In a statement, the Mali government spokesman, Colonel Abdoulaye Maiga, says the pardon granted by Mali's President, Colonel Assimi Goïta, demonstrates the government's commitment to peace, dialogue, and Pan-Africanism. Maiga stated that the move is aimed at the preservation of fraternal and secular relations with regional countries, in particular those between Mali and Ivory Coast. Colonel Goïta ceased power in Mali in 2 coups, first in 2020 and then the following year when he took control after firing the president and prime minister of the transitional government. At least 5 people have died and 10 others missing after an overcrowded boat carrying migrants and refugees attempting to cross the Mediterranean from Tunisia to Italy sank. The Tunisian judicial official revealed this, noting that the boat sank off Louata in the Sfax region and about 20 people were rescued by the Tunisian Coast Guard. The coastline of Sfax has become a major departure point for people fleeing poverty in Africa and the Middle East for a shot at a better life in Europe. According to data collected by the IOM's Missing Migrants Project, more than 25,000 people have died or gone missing trying to cross the Mediterranean since 2014. 6 journalists in South Sudan have been detained over the circulation of footage showing President Salva Kiir appearing to wet himself at an official event. The president of the South Sudan Union of Journalists, Patrick Oyat, disclosed this, stating that the journalists who work with the state-run South Sudan Broadcasting Corporation were detained on Tuesday and Wednesday. He said the journalists are suspected of having knowledge on how the video of the president urinating on himself came out. However, South Sudan Information Minister Michael Makwei and National Security Service spokesperson David Kimuri did not immediately respond to requests from newsmen for comment. The footage from December showed a dark stain spread down the 71-year-old president's grey trousers as he stood for the national anthem at a road commissioning event. The video was never aired on television, but subsequently circulated on social media. Russian and Ukrainian artillery have continued to pound targets in war-scarred eastern Ukraine despite Russian leader Vladimir Putin saying he ordered his forces to observe a 36-hour ceasefire for the Orthodox Christmas. Exchanges of artillery fire were reported along the front lines of Ukraine's city of Bakhmut, the town of Kreminna, and other locations in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions on Friday after the start of Moscow's order for its forces to maintain a unilateral truce from midday in observance of the Russian holiday. Russian rockets also rained down on residential areas in the cities of Kherson and Kramatorsk before the truce was scheduled to begin at noon Moscow time. Russian President Vladimir Putin has praised the Russian Orthodox Church for supporting Moscow's forces fighting in Ukraine. President Putin, in an Orthodox Christmas message, made it clear he saw the Russian Orthodox Church as an important stabilizing force for society at a time like this. The Kremlin issued Putin's message after the Russian leader attended an Orthodox Christmas Eve service on his own inside the Kremlin Cathedral rather than joining other worshippers in a public celebration. He said it is deeply gratifying to note the enormous constructive contribution of the Russian Orthodox Church and other Christian denominations in unifying society, preserving the historical memory, educating youth, and strengthening the institution of family. In the Middle East, Iran hanged 2 men today for allegedly killing a security official during nationwide protests that follows the death of 22-year-old Kurdish Iranian woman Mahsa Amini on September 16th. The judiciary, in a statement, said that the 2 men executed had been convicted of killing a member of the Basij paramilitary force militia. 3 others have been sentenced to death in the same case, while 11 received prison sentences. The latest execution brings to 4 the number of protesters officially known to have been executed in the aftermath of the unrest. Last month, Amnesty International said Iranian authorities are seeking the death penalty for at least 26 others in what is called sham trials designed to intimidate protesters in the popular uprising that has rocked the country. Israel's right-wing government says it has approved a series of punitive measures in response to a Palestinian bid to push the International Court of Justice to give its opinion on the decades-old occupation. The measures announced by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's right-wing security cabinet on Friday includes using Palestinian money to compensate the families of Israeli settlers and soldiers who were attacked by Palestinians. Netanyahu's office said the measures were a response to the Palestinian Authority's decision to wage political and legal war against the State of Israel. In a tweet, the far-right security minister Itamar Ben-Gvir said he hopes that more measures will be taken against those who support terrorism and try to put pressure on Israel. The Taliban administration has denounced Britain's Prince Harry for his admission of killing 25 people while on military duty in Afghanistan. Taliban leader Anas Haqqani made this known, stating that the government had checked and found that the days on which Prince Harry mentioned killing the 25 mujahideen, the group did not have any casualties in Helmand. He said the story is a part of the many war crimes of the 20 years of Western military presence in Afghanistan, adding that it is not the whole picture of the crimes committed by them. He further stated that the Western occupation of Afghanistan is truly an odious moment in human history, and comments by Prince Harry is a microcosm of the trauma experienced by Afghans at the hands of occupation forces who murdered innocents without any accountability. Myanmar's military government has held talks with 3 ethnic armed groups on staging elections in areas under rebel control. It was reported that leaders from the Shan State Progress Party, United Wa State Party, and National Democratic Alliance Army, which have largely stayed out of a growing conflict that has gripped the country since the military staged a coup in February 2021, are holding 3 days of talks in the capital, Naypyidaw. A spokesperson for the SSPP, which controls territory in northern Shan State, said that the military had asked the group to let the government hold free and fair elections in the area. He added that the group will not oppose the election. You are watching Spring Global on Western Spring Television. We will be right back after this break.
Arrested, affected, sound, found. What do we see? What do we say? Flowing from a spring. A fact A to Z. Check. and confirm. Eva is pounding current events, traveling down from the business gist to the globally arising happenings, to the sports news, to the bittersweet infos. Guided transmission, even diffusion, vast and fast, detailed facts are fled. Within seconds, nuggets of words that flew across borders are fired. Stories short and long, wrapped in bundles of words, broken and dissected as it is, except misheard. This is the news as it is.
Sports is a culture on its own. It has its own language, its own people, with their own way of life. The world of sports is never void of actions, stories, dramas, and scandals. I guess you need a sports show that can walk the walk and talk the talk.
On this show, we answer all your sporting questions. The whens, the whys, the wheres, and even the what ifs. Sports Spring is that show that will give you that new lease of life you've been looking for in sport journalism. Join me, Joseph Atewe,
And your sports Amazon, Nengi Ernest.
on this station, Western Spring Television, channel 190, only on Star Times.
Let's talk sports. Let's speak the most universal language of the world.
You're welcome back. After almost 4 decades in space, a retired National Aeronautics and Space Administration NASA satellite is about to fall to Earth. NASA disclosed this in a statement stating that the chances of falling satellite debris posing a risk to anyone on Earth is very low. According to NASA, most of the 2,450-kilogram satellites will burn up on re-entry, but some pieces are expected to survive, according to the U.S. Defense Department. The science satellite is expected to come down on Sunday night at approximately 23:40 GMT, give or take 17 hours. The Earth's radiation budget satellite, known as ERBS, was launched in 1984 on board the Space Shuttle Challenger. Although its expected working lifetime was 2 years, the satellite kept making ozone and other atmospheric measurements until its retirement in 2005. Kevin McCarthy has been elected United States Speaker of the House of Representatives after heated exchanges which almost saw fellow Republicans come to blows. It took 15 rounds of voting for Mr. McCarthy to win the job, despite his party having a majority in the chamber. It came after a dramatic pressure campaign played out live on the House floor as party rebel Matt Gaetz was urged to vote for Mr. McCarthy. The Florida congressman was among 6 holdouts who relented late yesterday. Earlier, amidst heated scenes in the chamber, Mr. Gaetz had almost come to blows with Representative Mike Rogers, a supporter of Mr. McCarthy, but the Alabama congressman had to be physically restrained by colleagues. U.S. President Joe Biden congratulated Mr. McCarthy for his win and said he looked forward to cooperating with the Republican Party.
That was easy, huh? I never thought we'd get up here. Thank you, Minority Leader Jeffries. Hakeem, I've got to warn you. 2 years ago, I got 100% of the vote from my conference.
Still in the U.S., the 6-year-old boy has been detained by police after shooting a teacher in the U.S. state of Virginia. Police Chief Steve Drew said the shooting happened at Redneck Elementary School in the city of Newport News. It is unclear how the child obtained the gun, but Mr. Drew said the incident was not an accidental shooting. The teacher, who has not been named and is said to be in her 30s, was left with life-threatening injuries. Mr. Drew emphasized that the shooting had been an isolated incident and stressed that officers did not have a situation where someone was going around the school shooting. Police declined to name the weapon used in the incident, but said the boy had used a handgun. However, parents blamed the lack of proper gun control policies as one of the root causes of the incident.
The biggest problem in this country. The statistics in the UK for crime is 0 for guns. Why is it so bad? Why is there a 7-year-old with a bloody gun? Come on, think about it. Let's do something. We've got a new governor now. Let's do something. Let's change it. You've got a beautiful country. You've got beautiful people. But what's the problem? Guns. How does a 7-year-old have a gun? That's what I'm pissed off with. I'm only here because my husband's in the military, or otherwise I would not have chosen to come to this country.
Thank you, ma'am. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has mobilized the state National Guard to help local officials respond to a large influx of Cuban asylum seekers landing at the southernmost tip of the contiguous United States. DeSantis, a Republican, in an executive order activated the Florida National Guard and direct state law agencies to assist in the Florida Keys, a chain of tropical islands that extend into the Gulf of Mexico. The move came in response to the arrival of more than 700 mostly Cuban refugees and migrants over the New Year's weekend alone. In a statement yesterday, the governor criticized Democratic President Joe Biden and the federal government's immigration policies. He said the burden of the Biden administration's failure falls on local law enforcement that lack the resources to deal with the crisis. The governor's statement made no mention of the Biden administration's announcement of a new policy to start turning back Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans who arrive illegally at the Texas border. The United States has announced that it is sanctioning Iranian industries that produce ballistic missiles and drones, also known as unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs. In a news release yesterday, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the sanctions will target 7 people in leadership positions at Qudais Aviation Industries, an Iranian UAV manufacturer, and Iran's Aerospace Industries Organization, which manages the country's ballistic missile program. Blinken said Iran has now become Russia's top military backer and called for Iran to cease its support for Russia's unprovoked war of aggression in Ukraine. He stated that the U.S. will continue to use every tool at its disposal to disrupt and delay the transfers and impose costs on actors engaged in this activity. Relations between the U.S. and Iran, already tense, have become increasingly strained as Iran enhances its military ties with Russia. At least 29 people were killed during the bloody operation to arrest the son of Mexican drugs kingpin El Chapo, Ovidio Guzman Lopez, age 32, alleged to be a leader of his father's former cartel, was captured in Culiacan and flown to Mexican City on Thursday. Defense Minister Luis Crescencio Sandoval said during and after the arrest, 10 soldiers and 19 suspects were killed. He disclosed that Mr. Guzman Lopez, nicknamed the Mouse, was extradited by helicopter and flown to the capital before being taken to a maximum security federal prison. Furious gang members set up roadblocks, set fire to dozens of vehicles, and attacked planes at a local airport. In business, hundreds of Tesla owners gathered at the automaker's showrooms and distribution centers in China over the weekend, demanding rebates and credit. Some of the owners said the sudden price cuts meant they had overpaid for electric cars they bought earlier. About 200 recent buyers of the Tesla Model Y and Model 3 gathered at a Tesla delivery center in Shanghai to protest against the U.S. car maker's decision to slash prices for the second time in 3 months on Friday. Many said they had believed that prices Tesla charged for its cars late last year would not be cut as abruptly or as deeply as the automaker announced in a move to support sales and support production at its Shanghai plant. The scheduled expiration of a government subsidy at the end of 2022 also drove many to finalize the purchases. In sports, Didier Deschamps has extended his contract as France head coach until June 2026 and is expected to remain in charge for a fourth World Cup. Deschamps, who won the World Cup as a player in 1998, led France to World Cup victory in 2018 and to the 2022 final in Qatar, which they lost to Argentina. Since the 54-year-old former Chelsea midfielder took charge in 2012, France have also reached the 2014 World Cup quarterfinals and 2016 Euros final. Deschamps has won 89, drawn 28, and lost 22 of his 139 matches in charge. The France Football Federation said assistant coach Guy Stéphane, goalkeeping coach Franck Ribery, and physical trainer Cyril Moine will also remain with the national team. Novak Djokovic's preparation for the Australian Open continued as he beat world number 7 Daniil Medvedev to reach the Adelaide International Final. The 35-year-old is yet to drop a set in Adelaide, beating Medvedev 6-3, 6-4. Djokovic will face American Sebastian Korda in Sunday's final. The Australian Open begins on 16 January, and Djokovic is targeting the 10th title in Melbourne, which would be a men's record equaling 22nd Grand Slam win. Adelaide is world number 5 Djokovic's first tournament in Australia since he was deported in 2022 because of his COVID-19 vaccine status. Meanwhile, Korda, 22 years old, advanced to the Adelaide final when Japan's Yoshihito Nishioka retired injured as Korda led 7-6, 1-0.
Magnificent. Djokovic giving Medvedev the runaround. Almost toying with the world number 7.
Before we end Spring Global, here is a recap of our top stories. Mali's military leader has pardoned 49 soldiers from neighboring Ivory Coast who were arrested in July and accused of being mercenaries. Iran hanged 2 men today for allegedly killing a security official during nationwide protests, but followed the death of 22-year-old Kurdish Iranian woman Mahsa Amini on September 16th. After almost 4 decades in space, a retired National Aeronautics and Space Administration NASA satellite is about to fall to Earth. You can follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. Thanking you indeed for watching. I am Damilola Raphael. Good evening.
Sound. Found. What do we see? What do we say? Flowing from a spring. A fact A to Z. Check and confirm. Ever is pounding current events. Traveling down from the business gist to the globally arising happenings, to the sports news, to the bittersweet infos. Guided transmission. Even diffusion. Vast and fast. Detailed facts are fled. Within seconds, Nuggets of words that flew across borders are fired. Stories short and long, wrapped in bundles of words, broken and dissected as it is, except misheard. This is the news as it is.